In this tutorial, I will be showing you guys how to remove the wheels off of a street bike. I will be working with a 2008 Honda CBR600RR, but the process should remain similar on most street bikes. So these are the tools you will need to take off the wheels. You will need a front and rear stand and swing arm spools for the back, a breaker bar, a 3/8 ratchet and an optional 1/2 inch ratchet, a hammer or something to tap the axle with, an 8mm and 12mm open-end wrench, a 32mm socket for the back axle, a 22mm socket for the front axle, a 14mm socket for the front caliper, and a 12mm socket for the front pinch bolts. So the first thing we're going to do is lift up the rear wheel. To do that, you line up the stand with the swing arm spools and then push down. Next, we are going to lift up the front end. Make sure you put down a towel or rag to protect the front fender. Another useful tip is to lubricate the stand pin with some grease. Once you are ready, move the stand slowly forward while lining up the pin. Once it's lined up, go ahead and slowly pull down and the front should lift right up. Now the bike is up on stands and the wheels are ready to be taken off. Now it's time to loosen the chain. Using our open-end wrenches, we will first loosen the 12mm lock-in nut. Next, we will loosen the 10mm adjustment nut. You will need to do this on both sides. Once this is done, you should be able to move the back tire forward, allowing the chain to become loose. Next, we will want to take our 32mm socket and our breaker bar and loosen the rear axle nut. Once it's off, put the axle nut back on and only thread it on for about 2 to 3 full turns. Once that is done, take your hammer and gently tap on the nut. Mallets work better for this, and it's never a bad idea to use a block of wood to help protect the nut. Once you work the axle as far as it can go, remove the nut completely, and while supporting the bottom of the tire with your foot and lifting up on it, you will pull the axle out of the other side. It should come right out and then the tire should be able to fall. This part is easy. All you need to do is remove the chain. I find it easiest to work from the top of the chain to the back. Sometimes your back brakes can get stuck on the rear rotor. If it does, just tap it up. It shouldn't be too stuck. Mine luckily weren't stuck and it was able to just slip right off, no problem. After that, the back wheel should come right off. Make sure that you are supporting the rear caliper. You can balance it on the swing arm or a milk crate. Just make sure that there is no pressure on the line. Next, you are going to want to remove the sprocket off the wheel. It should just pull right off with little to no force. Make sure that you collect all of the rubber dampers. Now let's get to work on the front wheel. First, we will need to take the 14mm socket and remove the caliper mounting bolts. Loosen each first before removing them. You will need to do this on each side. Once the bolts are removed, you can pull the caliper right off. Make sure you have a spot where you can rest the calipers to avoid damage in the lines. Do not just let them dangle. Next, we're going to loosen the pinch bolts. Take the 12mm socket and loosen both sides, but do not remove fully. Once that is done, you can go ahead and loosen the axle nut. Using the 22mm socket, you will loosen it just like the rear. Back it off until it's just a few threads. Now you can go ahead and remove the pinch bolts if you want, or if you want to, you can just leave them in. I decided to remove them. Now you can go ahead and hammer the axle just like you did with the rear axle. Once it bottoms out, you can remove the bolt and pull the axle through. Now the wheel is free. And that's it, you are all done. So if you want to see more tutorials similar to this one or motorcycle related videos, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Make sure you click here to check out my video on how to install the wheels. Thank you, and bye-bye.
Let me live my life, the one I'd better lead. All the blondes of fantasies, and we looked at them 11 ways. You said, look at me, I looked away, and you wrote the song.